And now, for the 10th pick, we welcome on a recurring guest. You guys, if you are listeners, you know this man, Zach Youssef, Philadelphia Eagles hardo. Zach, how are you doing, man?
Pretty good. Still living off the high of last Eagles season. I'm not quite ready to go into the next, but I think once draft comes, we just gotta go full send. But yeah, pretty good. No complaints.
This is an NFC champion Eagles podcast. So this is just, you're at home. Welcome
until
home,
they
Zach.
get rid of the trenches, and then it's going to be shit on the Eagles forever.
No.
Not with Howie. Not with Howie. But playing Howie today is Zach Youssef. So we're going to throw it over right now. Zach, can you throw us into the 10th pick?
Absolutely. And with the 10th pick, the Eagles are going to select Paris Johnson out of OSU. He is a right tackle, I believe. He played the last year's right tackle. And really, I think it makes too much sense to me for the Eagles to make this pick because you think about it, Lane Johnson played pretty much healthy all last year. But when he got hurt, there was a hiccup in the offense, and it's because he was out. And the guy hasn't given up a sack in the past 2 years, I believe. So he's a hell of a player, but also he said he's also not going to play beyond maybe 2 or 3 years. So you do have to start thinking about that replacement. And also, they really don't have anyone to back him up right now. So I think that would be it makes too much sense to have that pick now. And he could also potentially play guard in the meantime while he doesn't play now at tackle for Lane. But I think the Eagles, with 2 first-round picks, they have a lot of flexibility up and down. They could trade up if someone falls. They could trade down if Paris Johnson is not there. So I think they have a lot of options here.
So I love the pick a lot. Really do. Replacement for Lane Johnson. Didn't he just sign a 1-year deal, like a massive deal, and you're kind of up in the air? You're not really up in the air. They'll probably re-sign him. But he's let's call it up in the air next season. My question here is why tackle instead of D-line? And I know you kind of explained it there, but my thoughts are, what made you lean towards the offensive trenches where you're still the best in the league, instead of bolstering the defensive line where you've lost a couple players in the offseason?
It's a super valid question because you could make that exact same argument. And I think honestly, that is the other direction they could go. I think defensive tackle or defensive end is arguably the most defensive tackle is the most pressing need on the team because they did lose Javon Hargrave. They have not replaced that. Right now at defensive tackle, they have Cox, who's a year older, wasn't as good last year. I mean, he's still good, but he can't play.
He plugs holes. He's not rushing the quarterback like Hargrave was.
Right. They haven't replaced that production. And right now they have Milton Williams, who's a good rotational guy, not going to start. Jordan Davis, who hopefully lives up to his draft pedigree, but he's still an unknown. So you can't count on him. So they don't have bodies at defensive tackle. So to your question, yeah, I agree. They probably could go defensive tackle.
I almost want to piggyback off David and ask almost a different question. I've seen a lot of hype around maybe sneaking up and staying there and snagging Bijan Robinson out of Texas. Loaded running back room, I know, and you've already made really great reasons of why you'd want to get Paris Johnson. I want to couple that with why not possibly add a Bijan, someone who's going to break out, immediately come to the offense and do something, or maybe a lot of talk about Joey Porter Jr. or Devin Witherspoon to bolster up that secondary that kind of lost a piece or two in this offseason. Now you can get someone who can plug and play right away, cheap on both ends of the ball. But yeah, either way you take it. Why not one of those guys just because fuck it, you have the 10th pick and really shove it to New Orleans?
It's true. It is true. Bijan is tempting because, I mean, you don't get that kind of like pedigree of running back every day. You don't get the chance to draft that. And especially behind our offensive line, that is super tempting because I don't watch much college football, but I think Bijan is pretty good as a receiver out the backfield. So that's also pretty tempting as well. But ultimately, that would be the most, I think, just luxury of luxury picks in the first round, just with all of the defensive needs and the offensive line. And frankly, I think they got pretty good production out of Kenneth Gainwell, especially towards the end of the year. He started really coming on in the playoffs. We'll see how many games they get out of Rashad Penny this year. But I feel like Howie usually goes cheap at that position. They didn't even pay Miles. At corner, I think also that's also another viable position, but it would be similar to tackle because now there's not as much of a need now because they still have Slay and Bradbury, and hopefully they don't fall off a cliff. But I think
mine is, I'm not going to have much of a question just because you are a diehard Eagles fan. You know who Howie Roseman is, and everybody that is saying Bijan, it might feel right for other GMs. It's just not Howie Roseman's MO. It's offensive line, defensive line at 10. And I'm actually really excited to see what you do at pick 30. We'll be coming back to Zach here in a little bit. But first, we're going to go to the 11th pick and hear if Tennessee might also be taking someone on the offensive line.